Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our latest how-to live video where we're streaming across our various social media platforms. So today we are going to be discussing the really important subject of web accessibility. It's a subject I have to admit that until relatively recent I knew nothing about. But thanks to Callum and Karen, who you can also see on the screen, know a little bit more about it now. But we do have the experts with us to give us all a bit of an introduction and answer any questions as well. So as usual, as I mentioned, we're on our social media platforms. If you do have any questions as we go through our comments, you can put them in the box, and I'm sure Callum and Karen will be happy to answer. We'll leave them to the end because I know Karen's going to go through a bit of a presentation to give you lots of really interesting information. But if you can save them and then we'll answer them. But we'll also, if you're watching this kind of on demand, like I know a lot of people do, if you've got some questions, we can pass them on to Callum and Karen at a later date as well. So I'll stop rambling on. I'll let you two guys introduce yourself. Karen, do you want to just kind of quickly introduce yourself to everyone, and then we'll come to you, Callum?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Gamble from Creative Ink Agency, and I'm one half of a mother and son team. And as you would gather, I'm the mother. And so Callum and I are web accessibility specialists, and we run our own creative agency doing websites and training and consultancy and audits. So that's me.
Yeah, and hi everyone. I'm Callum, the other half of Creative Ink. I mainly do the website design and development, and I'm on here to answer any technical questions you may all have at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. So yeah, so without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Karen, and I'm ready to go. Shall I put the presentation up now, Karen?
Yes, please, if you would. That would be good. Sorry about that. Right, okay, so this is an introduction to web accessibility, and that means I don't know how to control this from here, Mike. So if I could have the next slide, I don't know if you have to control it. All right, yeah, I can see it now. So this is an introduction to website accessibility, and I think no, I can't control it, Mike.
Can you not scroll into the next screen, Karen?
Right. Can you see that?
Yes, we can. We can see that.
Okay, that's great. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, before I start, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our story. In May 2019, Callum graduated from university. He studied creative media technology. And in June 2019, he went straight into a job as a web developer. But unfortunately, that turned out to be a very bad experience because the employer would not make any adjustments for Callum's autism. Callum is autistic, and therefore he had to leave after 3 weeks. Rather than taking that as a bad experience, we wanted to take it as a positive opportunity, and we started our agency, Creative Ink Agency, at that time. Now, we were WordPress developers up until then, developing standard websites, but then in May 2020, the pandemic hit us and all our projects got cancelled, and we saw ourselves without an income for a couple of months. So we had to sort of put our thinking caps on and adapt to the new situation, and that is when we decided to specialize in web accessibility. So Callum took all his qualifications, and I did too, and then we decided to embark on a completely new course. And yes, web accessibility. What is web accessibility, first of all? Well, the World Wide Web Consortium that was founded by Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the internet, describes web accessibility as that it means that websites, tools, and technologies are designed and developed so that people with disabilities can use them. More specifically, people can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the web. So that is the formal definition, and I will really sort of make it a little bit more informal and make it a bit more personal, and so that you can understand everything that is involved in web accessibility. So the first point of this presentation is to make you understand what web accessibility is. The second one is you will learn how people with disabilities use the web and the barriers that they face. And then the third point will be that you recognize why web accessibility is so important for you as business owners and decision makers. And number 4 will be that you can find out what to do to check for your website for accessibility and what you can do to fix any issues. So let's start. The global standard for web accessibility are the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, short WCAG. They prescribe 4 principles, POUR, also known as the POUR principles. Now, P stands for perceivable, O for operable, U for understandable, and R for robust. Now, perceivable means that website visitors must be able to perceive the information and interaction components of a site. They cannot be hidden from them. Operable means that all users must be able to perform interactions with user components and the navigation of a site. It must be operable, so it must be functional. Understandable means the information on and operation of a website must be understandable. It cannot be beyond the user's understanding. And the last one, R for robust. The website content must be compatible with a wide variety of devices and assistive technologies at all times. So these are the POUR or POUR principles. Now, it is actually a legal requirement in the UK to have an accessible website under the Equality Act 2010, in the sense that if you have an inaccessible website, you actually discriminate against disabled people. And it's the same as though for buildings, you have to have a ramp or you have to have a disabled toilet. A website, because it is in the public domain on the internet, it has to be accessible for disabled people. In the UK, this does not get enforced, so there are no legal actions. But in the US, since 2017, legal actions have gone up 600% because somebody successfully sued Domino's Pizza in 2017. So they had to pay him a lot of money. So naturally, the people in the US are a little bit more litigation happy than we are over here. Now, I want to talk to you about special access needs, because you may have been asking yourself, what are actually special access needs? And we can split that into different categories because that makes it easier to explain. The first category is auditory. People who cannot hear or people who are deaf are often neglected in web accessibility in terms of thinking about them, because web is sort of such a visual medium, and people don't think about the people that cannot hear. But what about videos and podcasts? People that cannot hear or hear badly or are deaf, they cannot access videos or podcasts without captions or text alternatives. So it is really, really important that these are available on a website. Also, what if a business just states a contact number, telephone number on their website, then deaf or hearing impaired people cannot contact them. The next category is cognitive. Now, people with cognitive special access needs can be people who are autistic, people with ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, color blindness, and other learning difficulties. Now, Callum falls under this category. He has got certain difficulties when he looks at websites that have particularly a lot of text or are not structured properly, or are very, very cluttered. And so people with cognitive impairments or conditions need clear instructions and text, good color contrasts, readable font and size, and uncluttered layouts. Now, the next category would be neurologically affected people. We're talking about people with epilepsy, people that have seizures, Alzheimer's and dementia. And for the people that have seizures, there can be no flashing content on the website, or they need to be able to pause it before they actually enter the website. There have to be clear text and instructions for people that have neurological difficulties like Alzheimer's and dementia, so that they can understand the information. Physical disabilities, cerebral palsy, spinal cord injury, amputation, multiple sclerosis, arthritis are just a few of the examples that I can give here. I hope you can see the image of the boy who is using a stick in his mouth to control a keyboard, which is assistive technology for him. So for people who have difficulties, access difficulties like that, keyboard navigation is really, really important. And that means that they can navigate the website at the press of a button. If it is a keyboard, then it is the tab key. You go around the website with a tab key, and every section of the website that you're on gets highlighted so that you can see wherever you are. Most websites don't have that. So how do you know when you are on a link to press enter to go through to the next page? You don't. And assistive technology works in the same way. So like this boy, for example, without keyboard navigation being activated, he would not be able to access the website. Next one is speech. People that are unable to speak or have a strong speech impediment cannot access the information on a website that mainly uses speech input. This is probably to make things easier, but for these people, it makes it impossible. Now, also contact options that just require speech, like telephone contact options, are just not accessible to them. Visual impairments and blindness obviously are the next category. And for those people, for people with low vision and visual impairments, a good color contrast is really important, a readable font size and a logical layout. Also, the website needs to, the people need to be able to magnify the website without the text falling off the website when they're doing that. So that means when you zoom, the text cannot disappear to the sides of the website. Now, for blind people, they use assistive technology in the form of screen readers. Screen readers read out the information on the website and also images that may be important to convey the message of a website. So there must be text alternatives for images, and also for videos. There must be a text description so that they can't see what is going on. But if there is a text description or a transcript, then they will be able to listen to that through their screen reader. Now, special access needs actually also affect devices. So if a website is not compatible with mobile devices or smaller devices, like, as you can see here, a laptop, an iPad, or a smartphone, or even smartwatch users, smaller screen devices, then it is not accessible to people that want to use such a device. Age-related changing abilities is a big thing to think about, because we have a growing aging popularity. So people that have age-related impairments like low vision or arthritis cannot access websites that are not optimized for them. Or what about temporary disabilities? Site users with temporary disabilities could have a broken arm. Let's say your right arm is broken, or you've lost your glasses. if you're right-handed, your right arm is broken, you will struggle using a mouse or a trackpad with your left hand. So keyboard navigation would be necessary there. Lost glasses, you would need to magnify, you would need a good size on the screen. So those are the temporary disability examples. Situational limitations, we shouldn't forget that. Let's say you are on a train, on a plane, and you want to watch a video that you haven't got your headphones with you, so you need captions because you cannot turn on the sound, and then you would disturb everybody else. The same if you are outside with a mobile phone and the color contrast is not good, then you won't be able to see the information on the website if the lighting conditions are that there's sunlight shining onto the screen. So these are all examples of special access needs, and they do not just affect people with disabilities and impairments, they affect everybody really. So what I'd like you to take away from this really is accessible websites are user-friendly for everyone. That is a really important message. Now, what about the business case? Now, as business owners and decision makers, it is really important for you to know what actually are the benefits of web accessibility to you, to your business. Now, in the UK, 70% of websites are actually not accessible for people with special access needs. That is actually quite an important statistic, because out of 14 million people out of the 68 million UK population are actually registered as disabled and have special access needs. So that is 20%, or 1 in 5 of potential customers that have special access needs. So when we see that websites have been mainly designed and developed to cater to the vision of decision makers, how the site should look like, and without giving any thought to the user experience, in particular for people with special access needs, I guess that then it is not surprising that we have the 70% statistic in the UK. Now, the online spending power of people with access needs in the UK is actually now 24.8 billion a year and rising. Businesses simply cannot ignore the importance of web accessibility any longer. The BBC has done a report in 2017 and has found that the purple pound, which means the spending power of disabled people, their friends and families, their wider circle, is £249 billion a year. That's what it's worth to the UK economy. And basically 70% of websites in the UK are ignoring this. And this failure has already cost businesses around 17.1 billion per year as their potential customers click away from their website in frustration. So that is potential revenue loss of 17.1 billion. These statistics come from the Clickaway Pound Report 2019. So we can actually assume that these statistics are even higher now. So having a website that is accessible and therefore user-friendly for all your customers opens up a wider audience and promotes sales growth. So it really is a no-brainer. Now, during the COVID pandemic, we have progressed into a predominantly digital world. So there are now more digital transactions than ever. And businesses have to adapt to this to survive, especially independent businesses. So to give you an analogy, if you had a physical shop, which your website, mainly is now because of the digital transactions, you wouldn't put an obstacle course in front of the door, would you? So that only the fittest, the strongest, and the smartest could get through. So that is actually, if you have a website that is inaccessible, that is basically what you are doing. So you have to make sure that you adapt to reach more customers and become sustainable. Now, what can you do? There are certain tools and resources that you can use. There is a free tool on the internet called Wave, and I've given the link to Mike, and I hope that it is in the comments. And if you access that either from your Google Chrome browser or from the WebAIM website, then you can actually test your website for accessibility. It gives you a certain criteria where it's not accessible. So that is always a good way to start. For the keyboard navigation, use the tab key to get around the site and see whether you can see where you are at all times. Hopefully you can. If not, that needs changing. Now, alt tags or alt text is really important for screen readers so that blind people can perceive and understand the information on your site that is contained in images. Video captions have the same function so that people who are blind still have the opportunity to know what is going on in the video. People who are deaf or hard of hearing can read what is said, and people that are in situations where they cannot listen can actually read the captions. Now, we have a lot of information on our website in the blog. There will be a link as well where you can actually do certain things to test, for example, color contrast ratio. There is, a common sense element in it as well, because if you look at your website and you see, oh my God, I've got yellow text on a white background, that is a no-no, or yellow background and white text. Black background, navy blue text, for example, is really not accessible to anybody. But there is a tool where you can check the color contrast ratio, which is also set out in the WCAG. And I would recommend that you go to our blog and look for that tool. Are your text and instructions clear? In particular for links and contact forms. Now, your contact form is a really, really important thing on your website. So you need to make sure that all the input labels on the contact forms are clear. It's not, don't just put name. Somebody with a cognitive condition like autism would think, do they want my first name, my last name, or do they want both? And then they may give up because they're not sure. No, it is really important that you always make sure that everything is clearly labeled. That also applies to links. Where will that link send me? Just see more or click here is not enough. Click here to see, the article on blah, blah, blah is better. Yeah. So that is really important also, that your text clearly says, do not use acronyms, abbreviations that nobody else understands. Have alternative contact options. Do give as many contact options as you can for anybody, taking into account anybody that has got special access needs. Now, the header structure of a website and the logical layout is really important for assistive technology. If the header structure isn't right, then, for example, a screen reader will jump all over the place. It can identify something as a main header and then goes to the top of the site, and then right at the bottom is the next header structure, and then it goes to the bottom, and the person who tries to understand what is on that website gets completely confusing information. Now, uncluttered layout is particularly important for autistic people and for people with ADHD. We've also been told by people with low vision and people with dyslexia that this is a really, really important thing, because if you have a website that is really cluttered, I think it could give anybody headache. So make it easy and have a really nice and a website with that is really clear in its structure. And of course, the last point is ask for a web accessibility audit from a specialist, which is something that we do. Now, then, once you have identified whether your website does need work, you should remediate it. You can either contact your web developer and ask them to fix your site. Now, this is easy. If they know what they're doing, then, of course, they can do it, but most web developers can't. And that's why we have 70% of websites in the UK as inaccessible. Now, the next thing would be train. Training and consultancy from a web accessibility specialist would be ideal if you want to keep your developer, because you trust him, he knows the website. So a web accessibility specialist can train your developer. And that is something that we do. Or another option would be to actually completely redesign and redevelop your website, which is often the cheapest option. Of course, you can remediate it bit by bit. Then you can split it, but also if you have it redesigned and developed, you can also do that bit by bit and go on a payment plan that gives you that option. Right. So that's it. How can you get in touch with us? There is Callum, who is our head of creative. He's our web designer and developer. He is always a good one for technical questions and design questions. And I'm really the contact point for content because I'm a qualified copywriter and also for anything else. And you can connect with us on LinkedIn. So thank you for listening, and please let us have your questions.
Thank you very much, Karen. And that's a fantastic introduction to everything about web accessibility. So I do have a few questions. Unfortunately, I can't bring them up on the screen, but I'll read them out anyway. So you mentioned earlier about the issue well, not the issue, I guess what's happening in the United States, where the legal issues and 600% increase, was it, in legal action. Do you think that'll happen, or potentially could happen here? And I assume, Europe as well?
To be honest, I hope not, because it's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to have a website that is accessible to anybody and not be forced into it. I also think that if we look at the US, the people there are very litigation happy. I don't know what it is, if it is the personality. I really don't know, or whether it is so easy to launch a litigation. I think over here it is not that easy to do so. And I also feel that the British people would always try and find a compromise first. I would hope so. I wouldn't think so, but what can happen is that it is being more legalized, because already public sector websites have to be accessible, and if they're not, then they open themselves up to fines from the government, and that will happen in the next few years, that the government will impose that on the private sector as well.
Absolutely, that makes sense. So the question for you, Callum, if that's okay, around,
yep.
You touched on it a little bit there towards the end, Karen, about what you do. Most people, I would imagine, will have a website currently, and kind of what your options are in terms of a new website or redesigning your current one. So the example given here was a website that was designed 2 years ago, so relatively new, on WordPress platform. I know it's kind of how long is a piece of string kind of question, but generally speaking, how easy would that be to make it accessible, as opposed to having a completely new website built? I know it's a general question, but just from your experiences.
Yeah, it just really depends on the developer's code, really, because there's so many different ways of how to code a particular layout, and it's just really seeing how the developer has coded a layout, and once you're familiar with the code, you can get started, really.
Okay,
I can give a good example, actually. We have just sort of done a little bit of an exercise with Sam Agnew of Everyday People, and she says that she really at the moment hasn't got the budget to have a full redesign and development. So she keeps coming to us for advice, which works really, really well. And a lot of the things she's doing herself, and the things that she's not doing herself, she's asking us for quotes, bit by bit, to have it done over time, which is better than doing nothing. So eventually her website will be accessible. It will take some time, but it is not a quick fix. and and it will be within her budget because it's being done bit by bit.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think that will always be the issue. Sorry, Callum.
No, I was just going to say, sorry, I can't give a broader answer, but yeah, it's just judging on the developer's code, really. So
yeah, absolutely. I think like anything like this, people will always weigh up the business benefits and the other advantage and disadvantage of doing these things, like any decision people make in their business. And I guess the stark reality of the potential loss of income is it about 20% of people you said mentioned. Yeah. Karen, that that's a huge percentage of people. We often talk about drop-off rates on websites and things like that. Well, straight away, if you're losing 20%, yeah, that's something you would like. If you can get that back, you're in a lot better position, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, in terms of the websites that are accessible at the moment, what is there some good examples maybe you can think of, or areas that people could have a look at and maybe see the difference between what they have and maybe currently accessible websites?
Absolutely, I would say our website, wouldn't you, Callum?
Yeah, I'd say our website is.
I would hope yours is accessible. Yeah.
and the websites that we have developed, which are on our website as well, because they are accessible. I have to stress that fully accessible doesn't exist, because you cannot make it 100% right for everybody, but you can strive to do so. You can have 100% willingness to do so, and that is a very important part of web accessibility. And that is something that I'm trying to get across as well, that people, as long as they are willing to make the changes on their website, have an accessibility statement and an action plan. And on their website, they reflect that. They say, this is what we are doing for accessibility. Our website is not accessible in these and these and these areas at the moment. We are aware of that and we are working on that. Yeah, and then bit by bit they can make the changes. But most importantly, they offer people that have struggled to come to them and say, look, if you struggle with our website as it is now, please contact us directly here, and then give the different contact options, because that you have the contact options already on the website, but that specifically invites people with access needs to contact you. It shows you're open to have that conversation with them and to help.
I think that's a fantastic point, actually, Karen, is that for people, you don't have to worry about, solving the issue today or tomorrow. It's a process, isn't it? And as long as you're kind of starting and moving forward, that's probably the best case scenario for a lot of people, because you're more than aware that budgets and businesses are spent in all different places and they can only stretch so far. But if they're starting that process, that's an important step in the right direction.
It is, absolutely. It's not a tick box exercise, is accessibility. It's an ongoing process, and it's something that you put into your policies and adapt.
Absolutely. So if there's so someone's a web developer or a website designer who's watching this, and I'm sure there's plenty who probably have not much understanding of this world, how would you work with those guys with helping their clients, their customers?
So we offer an audit and remediation package where I basically look through the website using AI technology, and then also do manual testing where I manually check the color contrasts, screen reading, and also the keyboard accessibility as well, because at the end of the day, we say that humans use websites and not robots. And what we do is we collect the results into a spreadsheet, and then we elaborate on this via a report. But the thing is that developers and designers shouldn't worry too much, because we also offer the one-to-one consultancy as well on Zoom for an hour if they get stuck. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing also is we offer bespoke training and consultancy for designers and developers. So the course is split up. Well, there's a course for designers and a course for developers, so they can really pick and choose what depending on what style of learning they have. So if they want to get their hands more dirty, the kinesthetic, go for audits and remediation, or if for more auditory or visual, go for the training and consultancy course.
Yeah, it's like learning on the job or getting, proper training, and that is mainly aimed at web agencies, like that have more than one developer. But we have done successfully. We've worked with one web developer who had actually a job. She had accepted a job for an accessible website, and then was, I don't know anything about accessibility. What do I do now? So she got in touch with us, and Callum worked with her. And at the end, there was an accessible website. So, and she has learned on the job. She's actually recently contacted us and said she actually had a talk in front of a lot of charities saying how they could make their website more accessible. And she was very proud of herself that she could actually do that. And that was due to Callum's training.
That's amazing. I think obviously I know a little bit about you guys and what you're planning to do. Be interesting just to tell everyone about your vision and what you're trying to achieve, because I know that involves working with other people. So I know, Karen, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that we said that we want to make the UK digitally inclusive by 2025. So people either think, whoa, they mean business, or they think, well, they're delusional. So whatever they think, it doesn't matter to us, because they will remember us anyway. So the thing is, Callum and I can't do that by ourselves. So we want to train other agencies on how to actually make websites accessible for their clients, and also sell the same services as us, because there are so many websites out there and we can't service them all. So we certainly don't want the monopoly on them. So that is what we are trying to do.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I think that's a great place to finish, because I think that's a fantastic vision and aim. And I know you guys are doing some amazing work, and I know lots of people are really supportive of the things you're doing. So yeah, thank you for all the stuff you're doing, and thank you for the time today.
Can I just
thank you for having us on, Michael.
Yeah, can I just add one more point, and that is SEO, because web accessibility and SEO really go hand in hand, because the best practices are the same, really. And if a website is accessible, Google will love it, and all the other search engines, because they're looking for these attributes in websites. And funnily enough, we're recording a video interview with an SEO specialist tomorrow, and that will be going out, I think, next Tuesday, on social media. And in there, we actually discuss SEO and accessibility, and how it sort of merges into if these two areas merge into each other. So that will be quite interesting.
That's brilliant. I've just put up on the screen your website as well, so just as a reminder to people, if they want to go have a little look and find out more about what you guys do. Obviously, I'll put it in the notes as well, in the comments, sorry. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. And like I said, I'm going to upload this to our YouTube channel for people if they want to rewatch it. I'll send it to anyone who wants it. But thank you so much for your time. It's been really useful. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks for asking us, Mike. And please, anybody, get in touch. We're always happy to help.
Thank you very much, Callum. Thanks, Callum.